2026 70.3 Dallas Little Elm. This one's the inaugural race taking place on March 15th here. So let's dive into some details for you. Biggest detail initially is that the water temperature is going to be 60 degrees Fahrenheit here. That is going to be pretty chilly. So uh, with that, a couple of things are going to happen if we could back up to that. So our swim right here, this is our swim start right here. One thing that I did absolutely want to bring up is this little indentation over here. You're probably going to have to swim there and then back up. If there is no buoy right here or people pushing you towards this mark right there, you might be able to shave off a little bit and shorten the swim slightly. If my intuition is correct, they are going to have people pushing you in, and there will be a buoy that you have to swim on the left-hand side of this. And then you got to keep the right-hand side, and then you got to keep all the other buoys on the left-hand side. Other than that, this is pretty much a rectangle, which is a great start to your 2026 season here. Very straightforward. The biggest problem you're probably going to have to run into is on the way back in. You might run into some sun, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward course. So on the way out, when you do have to swim to the left of this buoy here, you're probably going to get pinched a little bit by a lot of people. What that means for you is that this section is going to be very busy, probably up until this point, and then after this, it will thin out. Um, it's going to be a little bit busier towards the pointy end of the race and a little bit more wide open towards the back end of the race. So keep that in mind here. But as we do make our way up here, things will naturally space out, and you need to get on some feet. Because it's a colder race, people are going to start very aggressively, and that means that this corner is going to be, it's going to come pretty fast for a lot of people. Make sure that you are in a group or behind a group where people are actively working for you to get to that point. All right. Once you get to this point over here, it's a left-hand turn. Don't overthink it. It's a 90-degree turn. Turn, start swimming. It doesn't really matter what happens out here in terms of your direction, but if you fix it after 5 or 6 strokes, you will be happy days after that. Another left-hand turn. Again, this is probably going to be one of the most difficult portions of the course. You're going to want it to be over. By this point, you should be warm enough in the water. 60 degrees, it is going to take a little bit for you to warm up. So at this point, you will know if you've over swam or not. If you're really struggling to breathe by the time you hit this first major turn up here, chances are you're going too fast. If you're really having to work to chase the feet up here with the group that you're in, you need to slow down a little bit, even if that means leaving the group out there. So once you hit this section right over here, you're going to want to maintain your pace. And once you get to this imaginary blue line out here, you want to really evaluate, hey, can I realistically hold this all the way to that swim finish? And regardless, after you get past this point, probably to about here, you're going to want to start kicking those feet, warming them up, because you're going to need them pretty quickly. So this is a pretty straightforward swim. I'm not terribly concerned about this rectangular swim. It's a typical kind of a backyard try swim. Nothing really major to write home about in here. Now, as we progress to the bike, that's where things change. So scooting over to our bike course, this is a single loop bike course. We do have a little turnaround right through here, but just rolling over the terrain of our 1,200 feet of elevation, you can see that we start at that southern side. We go all the way to our northern side before we loop back around, hanging a right-hand turn to hit that turnaround, back up, and then we do go into our finish. So what does that look like on paper? So this is what the bike course looks like that they've already uploaded out here. Our first aid station is coming right before the 15-mile marker, second right after the 30, and our third right after that 45-mile marker. When you are going out to the turnaround, you will turn around and you will pass it. I doubt you'll be able to hit it a second time, probably only on the way out. That would make the most sense there. So it's pretty spaced out pretty evenly every 15 miles out here. So that is something really good. All right. Now here's where the course gets a little bit more complicated out here. So looking at our elevation, I've got about 1,500 feet. That might be slightly high, but for the most part, we're going to highlight here the first little major section out here. The first 21 miles of our 56 miles, we have 590 feet of elevation gain. It's nothing crazy, right? But there's a couple issues that make this a little harder than what you want. Our max grade is 2.9%, but what you will see is a steady incline from the bottom pretty much all the way up to the top. You're just steadily rising the whole way. As we roll over these elevation gradients over here, again, you're not going to see any 6, 7%ers out here, but what you're going to see is you're going to see 2, 3% again, 2, 3% again, and it's just going to hit you again and again and again. So smooth is fast, fast is smooth on this course, especially on a profile like this. Now, the wind, everybody is going to be talking about the wind. What they aren't going to be talking about are these first probably, let's just bucket it in the first 5 miles, maybe 4.5, 4 miles. But for these first couple of miles out here, keep in mind that the swim that you just did is 60 degrees or about 60 degrees. What that means is you're going to be a little bit cooler than you want, and the air temperature might not be what you want it to be. So you need to be very attentive to what's going on. It's going to be very common for athletes to really, really push this because they're cold and their adrenaline's up and they want to go, right? If that is the case, watch out here. Kind of another problem on this course is if the wind is coming from the south. Let's call it from the south so far. From the south, you're going to have a major tailwind for the bottom portion of this course. Well, what that means, if I can get my clicker back here, what that means is the bottom portion right here and here and here are all going to be tailwinds if it is in this fictitious perfect example. That's really good and really bad. The sections right here, here, and here are all going to be crosswinds. Those are going to be major important, especially, I mean, no matter what the wind conditions are, especially this one right here. That is going to be a big indicator of what's going to happen in the next couple of sections on your race course. So no matter what the wind is, take a note of this road right here. That is probably the biggest insight you have on course. But backing up to our first 5 miles, if you do have this tailwind, it is going to start very, very early on. We're talking at about mile marker 2, 2.5. So just enough time for you to get your marbles out there and then make that right hand turn and hit that tailwind, and everything can come undone very, very quickly because you're pushing the pace. You want to hit that goal pace and you're chasing the miles per hour out here. When that happens, people forget to fuel, they forget to pace. Well, another common thing that you're going to see out here is athletes that are going to pass someone and then they'll surge for 20, 30, 40 seconds after they make that pass. You want to pass and just maintain. You're already caught up and you already are passing, so you don't need that extra surge out there. So just pass and maintain what's already going on, and that will avoid a lot of mistakes out here. There's a lot of turns out here, and that's kind of the third thing that we need to talk about. This is a perfect example right here. Here we have two 90-degree turns. We have a little waggle, and we have some curves out here, so you're getting pretty much everything out here. If you can get through these turns 1 and 2 relatively easily without minimizing your speed and then accelerating again, you're going to be great on this course. What athletes are going to run into on this course is, especially if it's a tailwind, they're going to enter this course flying, slam on the brakes, and have to explode out only to hit the turn again, slam on the brakes, and explode out. So right here you have two problem areas, and if you can minimize that slowdown here and here, then you will maintain your speed on a course like this a lot easier. On another section right here, these bends right here, it's going to be very, very easy for athletes to come up out of that arrow position. If you do that, again, you're going to experience what happens on these two turns right here. You're going to get through the turn, you're going to build your speed up only to hit the turn again and slow down and then build your speed back up. So again, this is a turn right here where most athletes can probably get around something like this in the arrow position and just soft pedal through and maintain your speed. Great, great example. If you are not doing that, right, again, you're just going to burn matches. And this is an area where you can burn 4 matches relatively easily in no time at all, starting at 6.9, ending at 10. You know, there's a lot of matches burned in a relatively short amount of time. And that's one of the huge issues on the course like this. If we're talking just in terms of elevation, that's another area where you can burn a lot of matches. You're going to go down some of these hills and you have the ability to stand up on this. And if you count the amount of times that are just on this little profile right here, it's going to add up again and again and again and again and again, right? And not to mention the times that aren't on the profile. So be smart about when you use this. The max gradient is 4.6%, and that's coming at the 27-mile marker. So when we get to the top here in our fictitious example of our wind blowing south to north, Then things change. In this example, we're going to do a crosswind and we're going to slowly turn into that headwind. So you're going to have a cross headwind during this section. What usually happens on a course like this is you have a wind that goes in this direction, right? If something crazy happens with the weather, then it will probably shift to more of a this or this, right? And so everything I'm saying is just going to be reversed. So you can flip it and reverse it. Now, when we hit this little section up here, this is going to be where the matches get burned really easily. So all those athletes that totally flew out of those first couple of miles are really going to pay the price out here. And not to say that you can't continue to burn those matches, because most people probably can. If you're watching this video or if you're racing this race at a competitive level, you'll be able to keep burning matches. I mean, we're only at 32 miles in our race here. So burn and match, burn and match, burn and match. That's kind of the worst case scenario. Again, smooth is fast, fast is smooth out here, and what athletes really start to feel it or are gonna feel it is right before this aid station right here, and then you're gonna get a false sense of security to get that aid, and then you're gonna feel great again for at least that out and back section, which by the way, when you hit this little turnaround point right here, you don't want to explode out of it. You want to ease your way into it, ease your way out of it, smooth around this course. This course is very, very frustrating because it penalizes you if you make any of these mistakes out here. You know, if you're in like a crosswind section, which you probably will be at some point in this race, what you want to do is kind of stay quiet in that arrow position, right? You want relaxed hands. You don't want to go crazy, zigzagging back and forth, right? You want just steady pressure on those pedals as you're hitting that crosswind. Think if anyone's ridden Kona, you want to do that. You want to do your Kona strategies, like watch it out in front of you and see what happens to the athletes in front of you. It sounds super simple and stupid, but it is a very useful strategy that almost everyone forgets while they're racing. They just block it out and they just don't use the brains out there. So use your brain, watch what's happening out there. Now we can dive into the best bike split stuff for you. So this is the 250 FTP athlete. They're targeting about the 232 mark total time, and their average power is going to be about 210. This is the power out here, and you can see in our wind example, if you follow the athlete as we scroll along here, it's going to start with a tailwind in this specific modeling, and then it's going to have another tailwind section over here, and it's going to roll around to a headwind for the majority of the race, aside for that out and back section. What that weather looks like is something like this. I don't think this is going to be the most realistic viewpoint, so that's why I did what I did earlier. This is starting off in the west and just shifting further stronger west, so I don't know if I agree with that, but this is our power plan, and a couple of things are going to happen. I'm going to get rid of speed and elevation for you to highlight a couple of areas. So the first area is these first 20 miles. You can see they're very, not aggressive, but there's a lot of intervals in there. There's a lot of up and downs. There's a lot of getting back into the swing of things and then doing it again and again and again. A lot of intervals. Contrast that with from mile 30, oh, excuse me. Wrong thing. Contrast that from mile 30 to about mile 50. It's pretty steady. It's pretty steady with a slight decline in power. Hopefully that is the case with you, with your weather conditions, but I would doubt that. Well, before we do that, let's go back to our power plan and bring some stuff back. We're going to get rid of speed. And you can see the reason why you decline with those powers is because of the elevation. It does drop and then simply maintain pretty much for the rest of the race. If we were to bring back speed, you can see that it steadily, here, let's get rid of elevation. It starts high up here and it declines, and then you're going to fight your way back up afterwards. Elevation, we bring it back. Intervals, if you want to do that, again, you can see the first half is very choppy, with the second half is much more consistent in this example. So our time analysis on a course like this. Drag, it's going to be very, very important out here. So if you do become a little bit more slippery, you're going to net about 27 seconds. If you increase your power about 1%, you're saving 36 seconds. Weight on a course like this, oh, I went the wrong way. If you drop 1%, you're saving 8 seconds. And again, that's because of the rolling nature of this course. So weight, not a super huge factor unless you have a couple lbs to shave here. Rolling resistance, slight increase or slight savings is going to net you 7 seconds. This can be a lot higher if you are rolling on something like a gator skin right now and you change over to a faster tire pressure, tubeless, all that fun stuff. So for me, what I would focus on this course is getting a little bit more aero, and I would get the power production a little bit higher out here. That's going to save me, in this example, about 2 minutes here for some quick math. And so that is our bike done and dusted. Forget to mention is fueling. So athletes are probably going to forget. Let's find our bike course. Athletes are probably going to stop fueling or forget to fuel in one of two ways. They're going to stop fueling for the first, 17, 18 miles, or they're going to stop fueling for the last, let's call it 15 miles out here. That's because of the wind, it's because of the effort pace, all that fun stuff. Athletes who typically forget to do it at the beginning are going to overdo it at the end, and vice versa is going to be true for the opposite. So again, that is our bike last big thing right there. So our run, let's go back to our course profiles on the site, and let's shift over to our run. Run course is a little bit unique. They have changed it since they initially uploaded it. I hope this is going to be the final version, but if not, we'll just roll with the punches. It's pretty straightforward. What they're doing is just changing it so they can get the overall distance in here and get everything approved, I would guess. Now, if you look on this map and their other map, there is a slight little change, and that's this little guy right here. I don't know if that's on accident or on purpose, or I mislabeled something, but mine is it's 3 complete laps and you get 13.1 exactly. So this has a couple of unique features out here. The biggest one is it's 3 loops. The second one is you're going to be running on asphalt, you're going to be running on concrete. There might be a couple of other different surfaces out here, but again, don't really overthink that. Big problems out on this course are twofold. The first one that you are going to really run into on this course is the turnaround section out here. This one is it's going to pull some effort out of you pretty much on every lap if you're not paying attention. What you're going to do is you're going to hit this section over here and you're going to run up through over here, and what every athlete's going to do is going to try to get this section done as fast as possible. Just naturally, they know they need to go out and back, and so as it continues on and on and on, either you're going to go faster and faster, faster, or slower and slower and slower, right? You need to find that happy median. That's where your wearables come in, your power, heart rate, pace, cadence, all that fun stuff. That's where it's going to be really, really essential. And if I had to guess, this back section is going to be the least populated of the route, aside from locals. Now, when you come back over here, up until this point, you've had a ton of turns out here. This point is no exception. You're going to be running on a concrete path back through here. Lots of zigs and zags and loops and all kinds of fun stuff. So everyone wearing those really, really cushioned or really high shoes or super shoes, right? You're going to want to watch out, because if you zig and zag, it's going to really open you up to a lot of ankle injuries. So when you compound this with running around athletes and things like that, it just becomes a lot to keep track of. And what happens when you do that with pretty much everyone is their eyes drift down when they run, and that's going to throw off your running mechanics. So make sure your eyes are up and you're treating it like almost like a trail race pretty much out here. This little section out here on every loop, let me get back my mouse, this little section where you run through the parking lot, this is going to be your energy lab right through here. This is going to be the portion where everyone doesn't really want to do it and wants to get it over with. This might be a little frustrating because you have to do it 3 times and they're just doing it to get distance, which is understandable, but just be patient here. This is going to be where a lot of athletes really start to open it up or cramp or things like that. Speaking of cramping, lots of turns, as we've mentioned a couple of times. Similar to the bike, this course is going to penalize athletes who are not paying attention and who are not super aggressive. You're going to want to let the course kind of come to you a little bit. If I wanted to break this down, I would break this down into lap 1, 2, and 3. And on loop 3, I'm breaking down the sections to get from that point to that point to that point to that point. If you want to do that on every lap, go for it. You do you, but that would just be me. Another huge insight is these curves, these turns, all this fun stuff. You don't want to explode out of them. Similar to our bike, you want to maintain your speed around them. Super shoes are high stacked shoes. Again, I've said it once, just be careful out here, big time. Because you don't have a ton of variance, right? You only have 415 feet of elevation gain on their website. If we switch over, they're saying 285. So either way, it's not a ton. You're going to get this in the form of many small rollers out here. And these rollers, they put you to sleep sometimes if you're not if you're not paying attention, you'll just hit another one and another one and another one. They're not big enough to be classified as, like, let's say, like a climb, right? But what you will experience is that you will have the potential to have that heart rate rise on a lot of these climbs if you're not paying attention. If you just push the power or the pace too aggressively on these uphills or these uphill gradients, then over time it's going to be more and more difficult for you to maintain some of those paces, right? Um, Fueling, you're going to have ample time to fuel. These are the aid stations out on course right here. If we switch back to our little profile, this is going to be what you get. Put that little one up there too as well. So pretty similar stuff right here. So what do we have? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 fueling opportunities for us out here. That's 5 per lap, 15 for quick math. So there's really no excuse to not fuel out here. What I think is going to happen is you're going to have the opposite problems. You're going to have athletes that are over fueling on this course. So be mindful of that. Now, it's one thing if you've hit your nutrition and you're doing your specific needs on the run. It's going to be something totally different if you did not do that on the bike and you're paying for it later. So big things on this course, we'll go through a quick checklist for you, are obviously pacing, breaking it down, loop 1, 2, and 3. Second big thing are the curves, the twists, the turns. Make sure you are not surging out here. Treat this kind of as a trail race where your eyes are up and you're out constantly paying attention to things. And the biggest thing out here is you're going to be juggling a lot of balls on this course, right? So be very, very mindful of what's going on always. If you let your mind drift, this is going to be a course that kind of penalizes you for that. So don't let that happen. All right. The last big one is on those small little risers. Be present. Be present. Be present. Don't let your pace and your effort level totally skyrocket out here, because you're going to get penalized for that in terms of, heart rate and your ability to maintain that over time. On this course, it's going to be very difficult once you get your heart rate up. If that is the case, it's going to be very difficult to get it back down. Another thing that we have not talked about is weather. Switching back over to our little course overview here. They're saying that the high air temperature is 69, so kind of perfect out there. But you're going to want to check temperature. You're going to want to check humidity, relative humidity. All of that fun stuff will play huge factors in it. And, 69 degrees might sound perfect, but if it's raining or windy or whatever and it's 62, that's a totally different conversation out there. So hope you liked the video. If you like what you saw, please like, subscribe, share, all of that fun stuff. If you want individual coaching or are interested, contact info is down below. Happy to talk to you on an individual basis for a race consultation or one-to-one coaching. Good luck everyone racing on this 2026 edition.